What's up, everyone, and welcome to the StarScript Observatory, where creators and fans get discovered. I'm Zach James, and I'm here with Athen Chimenti, host of Mastering the Zodiac. What's up, Athen?
Hey, Zach. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So you have an astrology platform called Mastering the Zodiac, and how did you get into astrology?
Well, I was around 2011, 2012, had quite the kind of awakening, you could say. I had a bit of a spiritual awakening. And from there, before that I was very objective, very much about, would have never believed in anything beyond what you can physically sense here in the physical realm. But got into Eckhart Tolle, and that got me really deep into meditation. And then I spent some time out in the Amargosa Valley, which is on the outskirts of Death Valley in California, and spent a lot of time kind of alone, just reflecting on things and meditating. And then one day I just had this kind of really kind of deep awareness about life and the undercurrents of life. And my perspective just has really shifted from there. So from there, I got into some different mediums, like astrology was one of them. And the more I just kind of worked with it, I was like, this actually fits, because it is quite still kind of scientific in a sense. I know a lot of people would probably scoff at that statement, but it is a very, practical kind of thing you're doing. You're looking at the, mathematical, placement of the planets and trying to calculate what's going on at certain times, right? So it spoke to that side of me, but of course it was still something that was quite spiritual, and I felt like I could really gain a lot of higher perspectives through. So started doing it for myself for about a couple years. And, as I was doing that, I was like, okay, I can actually, help other people. And then I started a YouTube channel and just did some regular forecasts and horoscopes. And then people started to come to me for readings, and one thing led to another. And now I'm doing readings full time as an astrologer.
That's awesome. And so when I think of astrology, or when I think of the stars, I guess, I do think also from a scientific perspective, because we have that, the term like fractal, that things are fractal, like, as, with the things that are very small, patterns that we see that are, very small on a microcosmic level are actually also reflected on a macrocosmic level. And we can see evidence of that in the scientific world. And also, I just kind of think of the same way with the stars and on Earth. And, there's some type of reflective property going on where we're here on this planet and we're looking out. We have this, this reflection that is, relative. There's all this, relativity that's there, and things are changing, here on Earth, and our relationship with what we're seeing out there is also changing. So I guess I've always viewed it as just some type of reflection. And I think one of the misconceptions, at least in my opinion, is that people look to the stars to kind of see the future, and rather, let's say, even like tonight, like you'd see something about tonight, to look at the future. And I guess you could do some outlook, because you kind of know how things are going to align and what the patterns are going to represent. But also that really it's simultaneous. So whatever those stars are reflecting right now is what's going on, in your life. It's going to have some type of relationship with what's going on in your life right now. So it's more simultaneous than future telling, I guess. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, that's how I like to look at it. I think that's the most important thing, is that we're always present and, working with the current energy, I suppose, in that context. But yeah, it's definitely the fractal of, our experiences just being seen in the stars. It's not that the planets, I think, have like this effect on us. It's not this like cause and effect kind of Newtonian idea of physics. What I think's going on is that we're in this fractal of life, and there's cycles within that fractal. And all we're doing with astrology is we're just looking to see, okay, what time period are we in? Because the planets are really the only like atomic clock that we have, like a real atomic clock, very consistent. And by just seeing what time it is, like when Jupiter's in front of a certain constellation, we've noticed patterns in the past that when that happens, it means we're in a certain time period of our life. And so all we're really doing is we're just saying, what time period are we in? And how can we work with these cycles in a way that's constructive? And the best way of doing that is, of course, is being present and saying, okay, what am I learning in this experience now? And although you might know where Jupiter's going to be in 10 years or, in a year or whatever it is, and you can kind of foretell that. Yes, I think the best way is to, in the current energy, just kind of sit with it, see what's arising, what your inner guidance is telling you, and then kind of acting from there. But the planets can give you a lot of indication as to what you're currently processing, what your current levels of development are, what your challenges might be, and what you can do for your spiritual growth, I think most importantly.
And also with astrology, that it's something that has emerged, all around the world. It's not really restricted to one geographic location, and there's a lot of variations. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. So the biggest variation is between the East and the West, particularly between India, which is the Hindu Vedic astrology, and then what we call tropical or Western astrology. And they're very different systems. But the biggest difference between them is that in India, they've been true to the actual visible sky to a degree. They essentially use an even 30 degrees for each of the constellations in the sky. Both systems do. But the truth is if you look up at the sky, these constellations are different sizes, right? Like Pisces is a very large constellation. Cancer is like a very small one. So in that sense, the Vedic astrologers are using the sky. They're just simplifying it into 30 degrees each. And so in that sense, they're still true to the sky, but it's a bit of a simplified system. And in the West, unfortunately, it's completely different. They're using what's called the seasonal system, which is basing everything around the seasons. So when it's spring equinox, when it's the spring, they say you're in Aries, but in fact, the sun is actually not in Aries during the spring. It's still in Pisces. And so the two systems are completely different by signs. And, that's probably the biggest difference between the two.
Okay. And those are the two main, there's no other system out there. What about like Native American or anything? Yeah. Okay.
Unfortunately, it's very hard to actually uncover what exactly the systems were and the techniques that they were using. There's the Mayan systems, of course. We know a little bit about the Egyptian systems. We kind of piece together Chinese systems as well. We kind of piece together. But in terms of actually like full systems that are still used and you could say is like a full encompass system, then that would definitely be either your Vedic Hindu or your Western tropical astrology.
And do you use both, or do you just mostly stick with one?
So I am primarily Western because I come from a Western background in terms of the techniques, but I'm using what's called true sidereal, which is using the actual size of the constellations. So in a sense, it's kind of a blend of both because the Vedics still somewhat use the actual constellations. So I'm still using those, but I'm using Western techniques. So it's kind of like a blend of both. But basically what my system is if you go outside and you look to see exactly where the constellations are, like the size and everything, like you go up and you look up at the sky, that's what my system's taking into account, which changes from both systems because, again, both are simplified, even 30 degrees for each of the signs. So that, changes the signs quite a bit in that sense.
Gotcha. And what is the primary benefit that you think that people can get from viewing your channel or getting in contact with you?
The benefit is, if you're into personal growth and you're open-minded to the fact that astrology might be able to help you with that. Most of my community is, very much personal growth oriented. I do, of course, still have like the traditional people who want to see what's going on in the future and how to predict things. But most importantly, I think the way I approach it is how can we work with these time periods in a way that's constructive and help us with our personal growth and spiritual development. So if you're into that and you're open to the idea that astrology might be able to help us with that by seeing where we're at in certain cycles and also what our blueprint is in our birth chart, because when we're all born, of course, the planets were in different locations, and so that gives you an indication as to what your spiritual growth is for your overall life, what your life path is, some of your personality characteristics, although not so predetermined, I believe. I think it's more about what aspects of your personality are you developing and how can you develop those. The astrology can show that stuff. So yeah, anyone who's interested in personal development and open-minded to astrology, I think could benefit.
Something that I think is really useful in this arena, but also in general, actually, is that I know that there's a lot of belief in monotheism, and we kind of like to reduce everything to where it's all just one thing. But it's and that has its uses. But I also like the idea of personifying everything, or anthropomorphize everything, because it's a way that it gives you a better interface to deal with the diversity of what's going on. And so this isn't necessarily limited to astrology, but it certainly, I think, applies, because we do have, we have this structure of, these different constellations, but then there's this personification that's put upon them. And can you go a little bit into, why you think they're personified, and, how that also helps us gain insight?
So the constellations, you mean, like the signs that we're using?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So the signs, the way I see it is, it's basically just a different aspect of the human experience, or even of just the life experience, kind of divided up into 12 or 13 different segments, depending on which system you use. So in that sense, it's sort of a essential representation of life. And so whatever you have more activated, let's say in your birth chart, or what we have activated right now in the sky, it's going to be a time of developing that side of our personality. And in terms of like spirituality and religion and what that means, I think, this whole concept of, God and these, and even multiple gods, so it's polytheism and stuff. It's like these energies that we're kind of striving towards. It's not human. Human is obviously not, the highest expression of all these different elements, but we look to the gods, so to speak, or to the signs, or to God as a kind of guide to be, developed and to grow and to strive towards, kind of like an ideal kind of a thing. And so astrology could be seen as, you have these different archetypes, these different personifications of life that during certain time periods we're developing, and then in our birth chart, life is helping us develop those different aspects of life. Yeah.
So something that Shakespeare did, I felt pretty well, was that he would personify just a word, and this happens with other writers, and that we've seen throughout time, like death, right? All of a sudden we personified, it's actually a figure, and it has certain features. And I think in Harry Potter they had death, and death was personified in the story in the Deathly Hallows, the Tale of the Deathly Hallows. And I really like that idea. I think it's a really great way to, first thing, I think it's a great way to express what quality that specific symbol has, because I'm very much a word person. And really, I like to even say that every word itself, or even every combination of words, is a spirit or a communication of spirits, and give it a personality, recognize that it's unique and different from all these other symbols that are out there, and it has relationships with all these other symbols. And I guess I see that same thing crossing over into the astrology world, and it makes it helpful because you can put a story, around it. And we use these stories, we see a lot of storytelling in relation to the stars, and it gives us insight into how, what's coming. And we don't necessarily know the literal aspect of it, because that would be kind of like telling the future. We just get like maybe the metaphorical. But we don't know how that's going to be revealed, and a lot of times it's definitely surprising how it's revealed.
Right. Yeah, and that's exactly what I think astrology is it's just showing something that really even can't be put into words. It's almost the opposite of the words in that sense. It's the abstract idea. It's the story. Like traditional astrologers, like in the Hindu astrologers, they wouldn't write anything down regarding the astrology, because they believe that once you put something into a concept or into a word, you're taking away from the essential meaning of that, let's say, constellation or that thing. So they were very much about, recognizing that these were elements that are beyond, understanding, and like we can't understand it fully but we can get close. And so we try to use these words to kind of point to, these essential aspects of life. And in that sense, yes, we can kind of personify them, like, Sagittarius, the centaur, and Gemini, the twins. And so for us, that helps us kind of point to what this element's about. But at the end of the day, it is about something more essential. It's a very abstract thing to us that we can't fully conceptualize or understand in its essence, but we can get close to and develop. And I think that's what we're here to do, is to kind of work with and develop these things in a way it's practical and concrete, striving towards that ideal, which is a very non-practical, very abstract idea. If each constellation was an idea, so to speak, or a story, whatever you want to call it, right? Something we're developing like that.
Mm-hmm. I also think back to, just being really into language, abnormally in some ways. I was looking to just like the Old Testament and reading. I was really obsessed with name meanings, which I still am, but years ago I was really obsessed with it. And just reading like, the story of Adam and Eve, and that Adam, if you look up the meaning of the name Adam, it means earth. And the meaning of the name Eve, it means life. And so you have this first love between earth and life. And so obviously that's less literal than like Adam being like this guy and Eve being this woman, which also I guess could be true. But I think in a lot of ways there's a lot of metaphor to be taken from a lot of the different scriptures and religious texts. And oftentimes we take things a little bit too literally with that. And I think there was a point in time even when like, I think it was the New Testament or something that was actually like not available to the public in England, and that they feared that the people, like the masses, would misinterpret the text. So I don't know. I'm just thinking like we do tend to end up taking things like a little bit too literally, and thinking that that's where the value is in something literal, or maybe even something rational. But the irrational and the metaphorical, it also has its value and it has its place. In fact, we need both to maintain a balance. I've got this one book, it's called Temple of Man, which is all about Egypt. And it also, I definitely encourage everyone to check that book out. It's very advanced. It can be very mathematical, but it goes into symbolism and metaphor. And it's, probably one of the most advanced things that I've ever tried to read. I haven't read the whole thing because it actually gets really mathematical. But I wanted to go into a little bit, mastering the zodiac and your structure. What do you currently offer when people visit your channel? What can they expect?
So on the channel is daily forecasts, which is a good introduction to the whole process. So you'll look at the current daily energy and see how can you again work with this time period in a way that's constructive for you. And that's things we're all sharing collectively on the planet at a certain time. After that, then you can actually cast your true sidereal birth chart, which will show where the planets were when you were born. And then you can start to look at that. If you want to analyze it, there's plenty of resources on the website, videos, keys, references. You can, and how to read the chart, videos on that and all that. But of course, if you want, a reading, you can always order that, which is where I look at the chart and see what your life path is, what personality characteristics you're developing, and then the year ahead, if you want that addition to it, which is how can you use the upcoming energy for you personally to further develop your birth chart. And then after that, if you're really into astrology, then there's courses for learning astrology, and there's also a planner there for looking at the yearly energies and taking notes and seeing how it fits with your personal life. But I would say the sequence here is, first starting with the daily, see what the collective energies are like, then take a look at your own chart, either interpret it yourself or get a reading. And then if you're really into astrology, of course, would be the next step for that.
Okay. And then also you're available for people to meet with one-on-one.
Right. So that's one of the readings. So there's different readings. You can get just an MP3 reading, which is just like this. You record, I record it, you listen to it. Or you can get like a Skype session, one-on-one session. Yeah.
I see. And do you have people that are like recurring, or do they come back, like how often do they come back to you, or does it vary?
Usually I do yearly forecasts. So my repeat clients come back every 6 months to a year, usually. But that's for the predictive thing. But those that just want the birth chart, it's usually just a one-time thing. You look at your overall life energy, and then you can use that moving forward. So yeah, the recurring readings are definitely for the more predictive folks who want to work with the yearly energy in a way that, helps their businesses grow, helps their relationships, home, whatever it is that they're, working on that year.
Mm-hmm. And so describe to me your daily life as far as not necessarily offering this stuff as a service and sharing, your knowledge, but what is your daily life experience like when you're out and about? I imagine you have, all of this stuff in mind, what's currently going on, where the planets are, where they're going, and what it means for you. How does that color up or benefit your life experience? I don't know, just describe to me a day in the life of Athen, and what it's like to just walk down the street and see something, and I imagine something comes to your mind that's like, oh, you know what, this makes sense because this quality was supposed to be present. I don't know, give me an example.
Every day. I mean, just yesterday, okay. So we had Venus squaring up to Saturn just yesterday. So Venus represents relationships and also represents the enjoyments in our life, and Saturn represents the colder, more detached, responsible kind of energy. So so I mean, throughout the whole day, I went for a swim in the morning, and the pool was way cold. Well, it wasn't way colder, but it was a little bit colder than usual. And so that's very symbolic for Venus Saturn. It's Venus is your enjoyment. Okay, usually a swim, it's warm in the pool, in the heated pool. Saturn is cold, detached energy. It's oh wow, no surprise. Okay, the pool's especially cold today. People a little bit more detached, so when relating with other people, not taking anything too seriously because everyone's just a little extra reserved or a little more detached. And then in my personal relationship, just giving a little bit of extra consideration for, creating that sort of space and being patient. Saturn's about building patience. So it goes, from simple things like a swimming pool and being wow, it's very symbolic, and very literal sometimes with these things, to something more personal, developing my relationships in a way that's considerate of what the current energy is helping me and all of us collectively work on and develop, in healthy ways, which is what I think these planets are, this time period's helping us do, is grow and develop.
Mm-hmm. And it in a way serves as a reminder that we may be faced with some type of challenge. And sometimes we just need that reminder. I know there's sometimes where I find myself, caught up in something, and then I step back and I'm oh, you're really, what's the root of this? Where is this coming from? So I guess some Buddhist philosophy sets in for me. And I say where is this coming from that's making it to where I'm focused on this? I don't even want to focus on this. It's just in my thought process. It keeps showing up in my thought cycle. And, it's because, you're really attached to this idea. It's because maybe there's a little bit of selfishness. And the reason why I say the word selfish is because, or greedy, is because one of the Buddhist books that I'm really into, it's not necessarily, I know there's a lot of different sects of Buddhism, but it's a book called The Handbook for Mankind, and I found it in Thailand when I missed my plane in the Bangkok airport. But it talks about basically, the defilements are the root of suffering, and that there's different Buddhist sects that define defilements in different ways. But this book identified basically 3 defilements, which is hatred, greed, and delusion. And those 3 things for me, I was always, when I first read those, and I probably maybe for a lot of people, we'd say something like, geez, those are really extreme words. I don't really use the word that I hate. I don't really use that language in my life. Oh, I hate this, or I hate that. Or I just, want this, and I don't care what, what other people think. I just, want more. That's kind of what you think of with greed and hatred and things like that. But sometimes, it's more subtle than that. And so I kind of force myself to put it into one of those 3 categories. And I really think actually delusion itself can summarize everything. If you're not seeing things correctly, then you're in delusion, and that delusion is going to bring, suffering, which also, there's, qualities of attachment and desire and wanting something to be other than what it is, having preference, things like that. But let's see, where was I going with all that? Oh no, I guess it'll come back to me, but comments.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what I think astrology can help us with is, I use that word a lot too, like non-attachment, because a lot of these outer planets, like the real far out ones, like Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, when they show up in the chart, I mean, it really is about non-attachment. And it really is about being more clear and, having clarity. And so, yeah, those are fundamentals, I think, of life is how can we live a little more non-attached, be more accepting, have a consciousness, conscious awareness. And astrology definitely helps us with that.
Yeah, and to finish up what I was saying, it's like, so as soon as I get that reminder when I'm like, hey, what is this? What's going on? It's like, oh, you know what? Like, you are probably being a little bit greedy here in this instance. As soon as I get the reminder, I'm like, dang, okay, just, it's easier for me to let go of because I've identified what the challenge is. And I see that, okay, well, I know if I just don't be that, if I don't have that, and all of a sudden it's just easier for me to let go of, rather than when I'm just caught up in the drama. It's tough for me to detach from it because I don't see it. I don't see what's going on. And so I think, that's what I was using to compare to astrology. You're getting these metaphors and these signs that could show, hey, be mindful about this, be mindful, about that. You may face someone, who, like, let's say for me, like, it'd be like a client who has some type of hardship, and usually, maybe I demand money, in advance, or I want it in advance, or they're having issues paying, and I'd be like harder on them, or I'd, be slow on service or something like that. And then, if I can get some type of reminder, like, hey, you're going to be faced with someone who has hard times, and it's really a good time to be compassionate, let's say, that once now I have that reminder, when I see it come up, I may have my initial reaction to it, and then now get that, recall that insight, and then be able to, handle that situation, much more compassionately and, and effectively. That again would yield to help attune my character and grow personally.
Yeah, that's exact. Yeah, I mean, that's a really good way of seeing it for sure. I mean, that's essentially what it is. It's doing all these things. It's giving us a focused kind of perspective, because we know, okay, today, because as humans, we can only focus on so many things. So it's like, yeah, obviously throughout our whole life, we want to practice non-greediness, non-attachment, and be conscious and all this stuff. But when it's a specific day, it's like, okay, maybe expect collectively today that attachment might become an issue. And so you get to kind of focus on specifically, and not just attachment. Maybe it's, we may know it's specifically about relationships or values, like if it's involving Venus or something. So that gives us that kind of clarity, that focused attention. And then the reminder too that we're all going through it. That's probably one of the most strengthening things for astrology, especially the collective transits. It's like everyone's kind of going through the energy. So there is a little bit of that, more like non-attachment anyways, because you realize like we're all kind of going through it in our own ways here today, or whatever it is, and then obviously how to work with the energy. Yeah, it's a really good point. I think just by having that awareness of what you're dealing with and working with and how to work with it, makes a huge difference. Very helpful. Yeah.
It kind of like, I see like a couple benefits coming out. One is like it colors up your life, which I love because I'm a sci-fi fantasy person. I'm a messenger of the fairy tale, and anything that's going to make your life, that's going to inspire imagination to also help you be constructive at the same time. I mean, I think that, that is a huge benefit. Plus, I think it could also save you time because you don't get caught up. You're actually become more observant rather than, just, I guess you become more creative than reactive. You're more mindful, and you can kind of step outside the, I guess whatever you're getting caught up in, or just your habits, and be more proactive in your life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you said that you offered courses as well. Can you describe the courses and how people can, like, you have a website, right? Is it Mastering the Zodiac? Is that your website?
Yeah. So masteringthezodiac.com. And so the courses, there's an online course for those that want to be more self-study. And so there's videos in the normal online course kind of workshop template with assignments and videos to watch and books to read and things like that. And then the other course is the one-on-one course. So that's like, Skype, where we actually work one-on-one and go through the whole elements of how to read a birth chart, which is the, again, first step, and then all the way through the predictive process, which is how to predict these upcoming events and how to work with them and what they mean symbolically and things like that. So the video courses and then the Skype one-on-one course are the two types.
I see. And people can access the video courses through your website.
Yeah. Yep. masteringthezodiac.com.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Um, di- there's with respect to the planets and the days of the week, there's a planet that represents each day of the week, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so does that, whatever qualities that planet has is obviously more prominent during that day of the week. And I think it's like, Sunday for the sun, Monday, moon, Tuesday, Mars, Wednesday, Mercury, Thursday is like Thor's day, which is, yeah, go ahead.
But the question is who started this calendar, and why did this
Sure.
start when it started, right? This whole cycle of 7 days. So
Sure.
in that sense, like me personally, with the Julian and Gregorian calendars, I mean, these were man-made sort of developments that they assigned. They said, okay, we're going to start now, or whatever it was, and that may have been a very arbitrary process. I don't know who decided to do that and when. So me personally, I don't use the actual days of the week in that sense, but that's a good example of what astrology is doing, because certain days are going to be Jupiter type of days, like, the Thursday kind of days. So it's, more of an expansion of philosophy and abstract ideas and things like that. But that's going to be more of like what's actually going on in the sky versus the calendar system. Because, the whole calendar system is, you have to really question, like, why does it start on January 1st? We have the winter solstice, which would make more sense to start a calendar, or you could start them on the equinoxes or something, something more nature based in that sense. But yeah, that's why I don't use the man-made systems too much. I like to go out and look and see exactly where everything is in the sky, what cycle we're in, in this in the real world. Yeah.
And you said in 2012 you were really getting into this, which is the December 21st, 2012, the whole Mayan calendar cycle. I know it's also disputed to some regard. Were you really getting into that during that time period?
No, I mean, it came after, and then I realized, like, so the real awakening for me started in late 2011 around the winter solstice there. And, but then as I got into 2012, yeah, that was really blown up, in the media and stuff. So I was, watching YouTube videos and all that. And the whole ascension process got into the whole, it was very, very, very far into that, ascension, new age kind of perspective on things, which I still have a strong, basis on, but, that was pretty far out the way I was doing it, by the way. But anyways, yeah, so I was getting into that. But mostly what was activating the whole thing was really just like awareness. It was like when you're meditating, and for those who have meditated for like, a long time, you start to reach these levels of just pure awareness, and your mind just expands and your perception expands so much. You start to take in like these essences of life that, we normally don't on a day-to-day basis. And so spending so much time meditating and in sort of isolation out there, that's, I think, what the process was. It was just more of expanding my consciousness and being open to more perspective that then allowed these things to come in, like the Mayan calendar, like astrology, and these other mediums and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think that there's multiple lives, or that you go through multiple lives? You think after death you're continuing on and doing something else?
Yeah, but not in the literal sense. Like, I don't necessarily believe in the straight up, like, you're going to reincarnate on Earth and have another physical experience. I mean, I think there's like so many different dimensions and experiences to life. Like, life is literally infinite in its expression. So I do believe that there's like these signatures that whatever you're developing here as a fractal of consciousness, that is getting developed further after this life. But whether you want to call it a past, a next past life or an afterlife or something like that, I think that's, again, a kind of a concept that is a little bit simplified for us, because we're here on Earth and it makes sense. Oh yeah, so we'll just, be embodied on Earth. But I think it's like our consciousness is just continuing to grow and expand in almost an infinite, way in its development. So what will happen in a future life and whatnot, I mean, I don't, I can't really conceptualize, but I think it's beyond more than just the physical kind of reincarnation idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my thought is that we have this 7 chakra system, which I tend to resonate with. And my thought is that we're, at least for me, the way I feel is that this is the first life in 7 lives. And this life is focused on the earth chakra. And it doesn't mean that we're not accessing the other chakras. I think we're accessing all of them. But I think the key that we're in, because a lot of times we relate the chakras to the musical scale, I think that the key that we're in, because you could be in a key like the key of C, but still play other notes, obviously, when you're in that key. And so I think actually the key is the root chakra. It seems just like when I look at the world, it's for the majority of people, survival, building foundation. Those seem to be the focus, whether Earth is going to survive, whether we're going to survive as a human race, whether you're going to survive as an individual, whether, your relationships are going to survive. And I think that after this passing, that we are going to go to the next chakra and be focused on that. And we're going to go through 7 lives in this identity with this signature, and then probably fountain down, because I also do believe in the shape of the torus, that is like a master geometry, that there's lots of geometries that go into that, sort of like what Dronvallo covers in the Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life book series. And I'm also very much a story person, and I'm okay with everything just being fiction, that what I believe is fictional. It doesn't necessarily need to be an absolute truth that I'm seeking. It could be just something that is experiential, and that just seems to resonate with me, this like 7 life system that we go through, holding on to the same persona, and even probably remembering this life in that next version, and still having the same identity, still looking relatively the same, but the properties have changed. Things are different. You're going to shed this body and graduate. So just something I entertain, obviously not something that's like widely accepted, because it's something I just kind of came up with on my own. But it's constructive for me. It motivates me. It fits for me. And like I said, it's okay. I'm okay with just myself, I think, being a fiction, and that what I'm seeing, my spirituality is also a fiction, and also what happens in reality is a fiction, because it's just all temporary. It's all moving. It's in flux. It's always changing. And so I don't know. I very much like to entertain that idea. Plus, also from looking into the past, I kind of also imagine myself like being on Earth in maybe multiple incarnations, or just being around like as a pharaoh, or being, seeing also like, there's a lot of belief systems out there that think about like the fallen consciousness, that we're actually like a higher consciousness at one point in time, and then we fell in consciousness, and we go through seasons of consciousness, very much like the seasons, spring, winter, summer, fall. So I don't know. I really like exploring all this stuff as well. I'm into it, and I just think there's lots to explore. There's lots of perspectives, but I definitely think it colors up the human experience, and it makes it, I think, something that's more imaginative, enjoyable, and creative.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me, honestly, if there was a 7-dimension, realm of experiences or whatever it was, because we do see that pattern arising a lot, like with 7 and then the chakras. A lot of things align with this. Like for example, like the traditional planets that we use in astrology is 7, and it's the visible 7 planets. So in that sense, we see that repeated. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was some 7 levels of experience. And I would agree, we're certainly in that physical experience right now. It's definitely dense in the experience in terms of what is possible with the other levels of experience, I would say.
Yeah, and I think also it's through meditation and through dreaming and other experiences, I just kind of see that really living is just so much more than what this has to offer. I really feel like I've seen and experienced these other dimensions through the dream space, and through just really imagining, and also just through, as a writer, through storytelling, that there really is so much more. And how I've even thought, even during meditation, like, wow, I came to this like realization, wow, how silly it would be to just think that this was it, that this was like, look at how much work has been done and really, that to me, because I'm a story person, like, look at this story that's emerging, and the history and the future and the unknown with death, and that we go to sleep, we call it sleep, 8 hours a night, or obviously varies per person. We don't even know what's going on. We don't, barely, like we literally just lay down, close our eyes, and you wouldn't respond if someone was talking to us for 8 hours. It's 1/3 of our life, at least for me. I'm an 8-hour sleeper. It's 1/3 of our life. And we're just like, oh yeah, that's sleep. Oh, so you're just gonna lay down, not respond. You don't really know what you're doing. You may have some visions or some experiences. You just wake up and you come back here, and we're just perfectly okay with it. I think it's probably one of the most mysterious phenomenons that exist in our experience is the dream state, and like what the heck's going on there.
Right, exactly. But it also kind of makes sense though, because everything in the universe is kind of always balancing itself. So if you think about the fact that we're spending all this time in conscious state, then obviously there'll be a quote unquote unconscious state, right? So there's always this theme, and at least in this physical world, of like balance. And I can't remember the quote, but it was a quote something like, like God created karma or balance so that he can take a vacation, or she can take a vacation, in the sense that this universe kind of self-operating mechanism, like it has this way of always kind of self-correcting. We see it obviously a lot in nature and the world. It's like nature itself is very self-correcting, very symbiotic. But that goes, to everything, the human experience. It goes to our own habits, our patterns, sleep and daylight, all this kind of stuff. We always see that kind of opposite. So it is crazy that we just completely go into this unconscious realm like that. But at the same time, it does make sense because we are conscious. And so there has to be this opposite to that.
Yeah. And I use a lot of this philosophy and, the ancient history and the stars even are really big. I mean, my company is called StarScript, right? So obviously a lot of emphasis on the stars. And I have this in this sci-fi fantasy series that I'm writing, a lot of this spiritual philosophy kind of woven in there. But I wanted to shift gears real quick, and I know, we could probably talk about these subjects for quite some time. They're pretty expansive, but I wanted to shift gears and talk about you as a content creator. I mean, you aren't working some 9 to 5 at a restaurant, trying to create something that works for you. It sounds like you have something that's working with Mastering the Zodiac. You've been able to basically, you're an entrepreneur. You've created a system for yourself that you could sustain yourself with, and that you're growing. You've got a pretty solid YouTube following, it looks like. And so what has been the just in kind of be a little bit brief, I guess, but what has been some of the challenges that, you've faced, and also talk a little bit about the applications you use. What's your flow like for those out there who are aspiring to also create content in the digital space and put it out there?
Yeah, really good question. So the challenges, I think, is to build a routine. I mean, it's the challenge, but it's also been the greatest strength, and the thing that's, I think, helped me the most. It's that idea, like, if you want to be a writer, then write. Like, it doesn't matter what you're writing, just write every day and just keep writing. And then eventually, you'll become a writer as long as you have the passion for it. So obviously, follow your passion and do what interests you and excites you, because that's what's going to be needed to do something on a day-to-day basis anyways, and to have the perseverance to do it day in and day out. But really, creating that routine structure was the biggest thing for me. And so for me, it was the videos. I created a video every day for the past 6-7 years. Well, 5 days out of the week, but pretty much every day for the past 6-7 years. And that's created this reason to get up. It's like I get up in the morning, I have this community that I have said I'm going to make a video for. It holds me liable to it. And then it gets me started in the day. It's the first thing I do in the day. And then after that, it just makes everything a whole lot easier. So find your routine, whatever it is for you. And especially if you can get some accountability, whether it's your community saying you're going to do something. It doesn't have to be every day. It could be once a week or whatever your pattern is. But, have some accountability there and do it day in and day out. And I think, that will eventually, through enough time, lead to success. Obviously, it needs to be something you're passionate about, so listen to your passion as well. In terms of the practical implications or applications that I've been working with, it all started on YouTube for me, but it was a much easier time. YouTube 6 or 7 years ago was a lot easier to break through in because there just wasn't as many content creators. Now the market is very saturated, so it is very hard. But if you are a more entertaining person, which I am not, and that's why I think my YouTube channel has growth sort of steadily, more as explosively. But if you're entertaining, or you enjoy the camera, or you like expressing yourself, or you have some content that you feel like would go well on YouTube, I think it still is a great platform for that. It's basically the modern television still. People do like to go and watch videos and learn about things. And if you can, do that in such a way that, encapsulates, people's interest, and it's entertaining, and it's, informative, I think that's a great medium. I also use Facebook, but I haven't really found too much. I do mostly Facebook just to maintain a small fragment of my community there, because they are into Facebook. But in terms of marketing and getting my information out there, it hasn't been the best for my particular medium. And then I recently got into Instagram, which is actually pretty good, because a lot of people who've actually left Facebook have gone to Instagram. And and now they've just recently let you upload videos there, which I just recently found out about, which is huge, because I just take my YouTube video and I upload the video now on Instagram, and I have a community building there as well. Yeah.
To IGTV?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And do you resize the video for IGTV, or you just upload it as is, as like a landscape?
Upload it as is, but the thumbnail obviously I have nice and cropped for that particular format. But the video itself is just standard, just because it's easier. Maybe once the Instagram community grows, I might make it more specialized. But it is growing, and like I said, there's a lot of success with it so far. So.
Okay. And so it sounds like YouTube's pretty much your primary, but you're dealing with the challenges of saturation. Do you have any other challenges with YouTube as a structure or anything like that? Or
it's the whole platform, and I think it's going to change eventually, because what YouTube has changed their algorithms over the past couple of years to really only promote the really top channels. So it's hard for new people to come in to break through. But they do, and they can. It's especially difficult to do that. But yeah, the algorithm for YouTube, specializing the top content creators. But fundamentally, with whatever it is you're doing, I think, if you're an entrepreneur, you're doing something online, try it all. Get out there and do it all. But the most important thing is you build a community. I think that's the most valuable thing that you're doing. That's what YouTube is basically about. It's the people who, every day watch the video, or once a week watch the video, and they're regulars, and they come back, and it's something that they depend on, and they're part of that. And so people want to be a part of something, but everyone has different ways of doing that. And so having as many different mediums for your community as possible is just going to broaden your audience, as long as you're not, taking too much time to do it, to where it outweighs the actual benefit. Like for me, Twitter doesn't work at all for videos. No one wants to stop their Twitter feed to watch a video. So for me, it was hard to build a community there. But just, try them all and then see where the community sticks for your particular type of content, I think is important.
That's some pretty sound advice. So I wanted to bridge that over into StarScript Legends, which is the application that we're currently working on over here at StarScript. And I know we had a call a couple weeks ago, and I gave you a little bit of an introduction, but I want to go through some of the features again and just get your opinion on, what, when trying out this platform, what you think is going to be a major benefit to you or a major benefit to your viewers, as distinguished from other applications that are out there. So the way we describe Legends, in a couple different ways, but one is that there's a social element to it, to have that social network. And YouTube in some ways doesn't have basic social elements. Like I can't share your video from Mastering the Zodiac to my page, at least as far as I know. There's no place for people to look at. I guess I could like it. I could put it in a playlist or something like that. And I could have a like playlist, right, of all the things I like and make that public. But there's no real way where I can just showcase one of your videos on a profile page that represents my channel. And I think that's a social element that I think is just kind of missing from YouTube. And it's something that we're going to have on our platform. So on our platform, all creators and all patrons will be able to create their own profile. And one of my goals, and this is something that I think is really lacking from Patreon, is that The patrons are so vital to making everything work. Without an audience, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing. If you had no receptivity, if you're just talking to yourself, you probably wouldn't be going through all this work. So the audience fuels us in lots of ways, and they also help expand and promote us. They're probably the best promoter that exists is someone who is already a fan of you. They're better than paid advertising. They're just they're better in every way because they authentically like something and they're sharing it just for the joy of, wanting to spread it and give it to other people that they think may benefit from it. And so on our platform, the fans will be able to go to your page and to go to your production and actually share, let's say, the reel, like the preview of it on their page. And the way the profile page is structured is not necessarily where like 2/3 of it is taken up by a post feed where there's just constant content running through. Rather, it's something that can be posted up and it'll remain in that same position. And people will be able to see it in a section called the showcase section, where patrons will be able to showcase different creators or different productions like Mastering the Zodiac that are out there so that they can promote it to other people who visit their page. In addition to that, another benefit is that this production that, let's say if you were to create a StarScript Legends profile for you as a creator, then you would originate a new production similar to how you'd create a business page on Facebook. And that production would have its own profile page and crowdfunding tiers. And you'd have maybe different stories, which could be, different episodes, or it could also be one story has a series of episodes or something like that. And you will have a share allocation for that production. So when revenue comes in, it doesn't necessarily just go to one account and then you just withdraw it into your bank account. You could actually you can create different pools of distribution. So you could actually create a promoter pool and say 10% of all the revenue that comes in each month actually will be distributed to an affiliate program of promoters that's built into our platform. So the people who share your content with their page and recruit new people who now become crowdfund contributors, they can be paid a portion of that monthly distribution that comes in. And so in short, the term that I would use to define that is just incentivized sharing. So not only do the fans get rewarded just by sharing, because sharing itself is a joyous experience. If you see something that you see someone else will like, you share it, and that's, there's benefit, there's value there. But in addition to that, knowing that they will actually be compensated because the production recognizes their value in spreading that information, that they'd be compensated for that and can earn an income from that's residual, and not only from one production, but from many productions. They can share all types of different things on their page and start getting revenue. And so even a patron themselves can start getting paid for being a fan, which would, of course, help promote them being more and more engaged because they're being rewarded in different ways. So those are just a couple different features of elements that are on the platform. And then I do want to get your feedback, and I'm just going to say one more thing about the platform is when someone would contribute to, let's say, Mastering the Zodiac's crowdfunding campaign, which is subscription-based, ongoing, similar to Patreon, then content, and this would be content that you choose based on the crowdfunding tier that they contributed to, will then appear in their library. And their library would have a similar interface to something like a Netflix or an Amazon or a Disney Plus, where it's just basically rows of, here's all your music, here's the podcast that you're looking at, here's the movies, or not that you're looking at, but that you've contributed to and now that are getting added to your library. So in this sense, we're sort of making it to where patrons, which would be virtually everybody on the platform, because creators would also be patrons as well, would be able to build their own library of content over time that they can get access to, just like they would on any other platform. So yeah, I want to get your feedback and comments. And generally speaking, what would you look for if there was a new platform that was being created? What would you look for on that new platform? What would help benefit you that you're not seeing on other platforms?
Yeah, so as a content consumer and then as a content creator, I mean, from the consumer standpoint, I think the most important thing is to recognize that there's going to be this next wave of social media, and it is going to be the decentralized sort of pattern that you're talking about. where people, they don't want to just watch a video on YouTube and they get slammed with all these ads and then all this profit going mostly to YouTube and a little bit to the creators. Like what's going to become the norm, I think eventually in the next 5 to 10 years, is people are going to expect to get compensated for their attention. And so when they go to social media and they're sharing things, they're going to expect to have that, that compensation there for their time. So that I think is a huge plus with what you're doing, because I think it fits within this scope of where things are going. So as a consumer, I think that's what people are going to look for is, does this have something where, it does compensate for my time, because I can just go somewhere else and actually get compensated for that. Then of course, the typical stuff that's still important now, which is there enough good content? But that isn't usually that big of a problem, because there's usually, when something starts to gain interest, there's usually enough content to satisfy the consumer in that sense. So obviously the content needs to be good. The interface obviously needs to be good. And then they need to be able to feel like they're able to express themselves on it in some way. So the idea of, again, having their own playlists with what they like, and they get to share what they like, and then again, have the compensation for what they're sharing. Yeah, I think that's very important. I think that's stuff people are going to look for in the future. From the creator standpoint, it's really going to come down to, is there enough consumers? I mean, I think that's just really what it comes down to. A lot of content creators are actually willing to do things for free as long as there is a audience for it. Like people go on radio shows and stuff, all the time. They don't get compensated for that, but they do it because they're reaching a new base of people, and it's attracting people, and people are becoming aware of their work. So the most important thing, I think, for the creator is to have the people. So if you can get the people to go, I think the creators are naturally going to follow. And I think the key for the people is going to be this, the consumers is going to be this new wave of decentralized applications and social media.
Yeah, and we will be using blockchain technology. We're using EOS. I can't remember if we talked about blockchain before, but we'll be on the EOS blockchain. At least that's how things are looking for IP protection. So when you upload any type of content, that it's issued its own cryptographic hash. Also for voting, there'll be governance structure with voting where smart contracts are created, and also you can recruit people and enter into smart contracts with them if they're contributing creative works to your production. You can make them part of a pool, like a writer's pool or a musician's pool or something like that. So if you have new musicians come on for new episodes, then they can be issued a pro rata or proportional share, and it gets diluted proportionally. So really looking to automate a lot of those business processes that creators, independents really struggle with, that really entrepreneurs, can eat it up, but a lot of creators, granted they are entrepreneurs, but that entrepreneurial burden is very heavy. But wow, we could keep going on a lot of these subjects, and we're pretty much already at the hour. So Athen, thanks so much for coming on. And yeah, you're welcome. And for most people who aren't aware, Athen and I met in middle school, I believe it was. But I think the thing that I remember most is just, I think it was math class, just us sitting in the back in math class. And those are probably some of the best experiences that I actually remember from school. And I think there's Megan, Jessica, those are a couple other people that I think were close to us. And I don't know, it's just as a schoolmates thing, I just think we always got along. And I think we did well in class too, right? We're both pretty, yeah. Comparing homework and stuff. So it's awesome. And then I saw you at the high school 10-year reunion, and I think that we exchange info from there, and I think social media also connected us further from there. So thanks so much for coming on, and maybe we'll do another interview in the future. And so for those who are looking to connect with Athen and his work, go ahead, Athen, and just let everybody know how they could connect with you one more time, whether it be through YouTube or your website.
Yeah, so masteringthezodiac.com is the website. That's pretty much the portal for everything. But on YouTube, same name, Mastering the Zodiac. That's where the daily forecasts are and some of the informative videos. Instagram, if you're into that, same title, same name there, and Facebook as well. You can find me there as well. But if you just Google Mastering the Zodiac, you should see all that stuff come up.
Awesome. Sounds good. I'm definitely a subscriber. In fact, StarScript is a subscriber to your channel right now. Also, everybody, if you are new to our channel, we are fairly new, but we're pumping out content Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. Let us know what you think. Share the channel with others who you think are interested. If you know other up-and-coming creators or even super fans out there who might be interested in coming on the show, please, feel free to contact us or tell them to contact us. You can contact us through starscriptlegends.com. There's many different ways. And just remember to, ring that bell so you can receive notification.